Hello students, welcome back to your online classes. And today we will be taking our class on chapter 6 on the topic light and sound. It will be in your semester 2 textbook on page 197. Your first assignment is to solve the questions and answers in this book in this column itself. Look at the following pictures. Write L below the objects that give out light and S below the objects that give a sound. In this chapter, we will be learning about the two different types of lights, objects, and the two different types of sounds. Your second assignment is to list out 8 given spellings. The first spelling will start from 1. Luminous objects. 2. Non-luminous objects. And it will end with serial number 8. Pleasant sounds. Let's start reading together. You know that light and sound are forms of energy. Light helps us to see things around us. We cannot see in the absence of light. For example, in a dark room, sound waves reach our ears through the air and help us to hear the sounds around us. Let us learn more about light and sound. Light. Light is the only form of energy that we can see. We need light to read, write, and see the things around us. The sun is the main source of light energy. All objects do not have light of their own. Some objects just reflect the light energy they get from the sun or from other sources. The objects that give out their own light are called luminous objects. For example, the sun, the stars, light bulb, tube light, candle, and so on. Luminous objects can be of two types. Natural sources of light. Naturally occurring objects that give out their own light, for example, the sun. Artificial sources of light. Sources of light that are made by man and do not occur in nature. For example, lamps and bulbs. So from here, we learn about the two different types of lights, natural sources of light and the artificial sources of light. Firstly, when we talk about the luminous objects, it means the objects or things that have light on their own, that give out light on their own by themselves, just like the sun itself. The sun do not need any support of any other objects or any other things. It gives out light by itself. The light is produced by itself. So those kind of objects which produce light by their own self, without the need or without the support of any other things, are called luminous objects. They are like the sun, the stars, light bulbs, tube lights, candles, and many others. And even luminous objects are divided into two types of light. The first one is natural sources of light. When we talk about natural sources of light, it means the light which occur naturally, which do not need the support of any other thing, like the sun. It shines by themselves. It gives out light by their own self. So those kind of lights are called natural sources of light. And other sources of light like electric bulbs or lamps and other things, they need the support of the electric shock or the electric current and many other things. So those kind of lights which need the support of other things which do not occur naturally, which are man-made. The light which which occur because they are made by human being, they are called the artificial sources of light. The objects that do not give out light of their own are called non-luminous objects. For example, earth, moon, mirrors, and so on. Non-luminous objects reflect the light that falls on them. So from here we learn that non-luminous objects are those that do not give out light by themselves. They are the lights that shines because they are reflected by some other objects or by some other things. They are like the art. The art did not shine or they do not give light by itself. Even the moons, the mirrors, and such other things, they do not give out light by their own self. They shine or they are bright or they give out light because they are reflected by some other objects. When light falls on a non-luminous object, it can be transmitted, absorbed, or reflected. We can see many non-luminous objects even though they are not sources of light. This is because they reflect light into our eyes. When light falls on non-luminous objects, it passes through or bounces off the objects and falls into our eyes. It is because of this we can see the things around us. Based on whether objects allow light to pass through them or not, they are classified into the following types: transparent objects, translucent objects, and opaque objects. So here in below we will be studying about the three different types of objects. Transparent objects. Objects that allow light to pass through them completely are called transparent objects. For example, glass and water. So, example of a transparent object is a glass. So, if you light a glass through a torchlight, the light will not be stopped by the glass. It will, however, pass through the glass. The second object is translucent objects. Objects that allow only a part of the light to pass through them are called translucent objects. For example, frosted glass and tracing paper. Translucent objects allow less light to pass through them than transparent objects. So in a transparent object, even if you light a torchlight, all of the light which are being lit by you will pass through the objects completely. However, in a translucent object, even if you light a torchlight through the objects, only some few portions or only some parts of the light will pass through them. And the last one is opaque objects. Objects that do not allow light to pass through them are called opaque objects. For example, bricks, wood, wool, and stone. These objects absorb the light falling on them. And these opaque objects are those, if you lit a torchlight through them, the light will not be passing through them. The light will be stopped by the objects. Shadows. A shadow is a dark shape that is formed when an object or a person blocks the path of light. Shadows have the following characteristics. Shadows are similar in shape to the objects due to which they are formed. A shadow is always formed on the side opposite to the light source. For example, in the morning, when you face east, the shadow will be formed behind you, since the sun is in front of you. Similarly, in the evening, when you face west, the shadow will fall behind you, since the sun is in front of you. 3. Shadows change in length and position according to how an object and a source of light are placed in relation to each other. The length of a shadow depends on the position of the light source. For example, shadows are shorter when the sun is directly overhead during the noontime and longer when the sun is on one side, that is in the morning and evening. When an object is closer to the light source, the object blocks more light. So, the shadow formed is bigger. But when the object is farther away from the light source, it does not block much light. So, the shadow formed is smaller. In the picture given, you will know what is a shadow. So, if you are this or this or this, the black thing or the black objects or the black image of you which follows you wherever you go, these things or this thing are called the shadow. So, during noontime, when the sun is just above us, our shadow will be very short. However, in the morning and in the evening, when the sun is not above us, our shadows became longer or become taller. Next is sundials. A sundial is an instrument that tells time approximately based on the shadow and the position of the sun. In olden days, before clocks were made, people used sundials. Approximately means the timing is not known definitely. It means the timing is somewhere around there. A sundial consists of a circular board, dial, with the hours marked on it. A triangular plate is placed vertically in the center of the board. As Earth rotates on its axis, the shadow of the sundial's plate moves across the dial and shows the time. Here in the picture given is image of a sundial. So this sundial in the olden days is used as a clock by people before the clock which we used every day were invented. So people would tell the time through the use of this sundial. Now let's move on to sound. Sound is a form of energy. Sound travels as invisible waves through air. Sound can also travel through solids and liquids. When we speak, we make a sound. We hear various sounds with the help of our ears. We can hear different kinds of sounds such as people talking, music playing, doorbell ringing, or vehicles sounding their horns. Sounds can be soft or loud. A whisper is a soft sound. and the horn of a train engine is a loud sound. Some sounds are nice to hear. For example, music sounds nice and we like listening to it. Such sounds are pleasant sounds. Pleasant sounds can make us feel calm and cheerful. Some sounds are not nice to hear. We feel irritated when we hear some sounds, such as the honking of cars and screeching of tires. Such sounds are unpleasant sounds. Unpleasant sounds can irritate us. So here we learn the two different types of sound: pleasant sound and unpleasant sound. Pleasant sounds are sounds of music which are very melodious, which we could hear the whole day. However, unpleasant sounds are those which we call it as noise, such as the honking of cars and loud noises made by students at schools and all. So those unpleasant sounds are sounds which can irritate us, which are not pleasant, which are not nice to hear. Noise. A sound that is unpleasant and unwanted is called noise. Examples: the sound of heavy machinery in factories, music played very loudly, bursting of firecrackers. Noise usually causes disturbance. Exposure to loud noises can cause ear damage. Harmful or annoying levels of noise result in noise pollution. Noise pollution may lead to permanent deafness. The following measures can be taken to avoid noise. Keep the volume low while watching television or listening to music, so that you do not disturb your family members or your neighbors. Speak softly. Do not shout. So unpleasant sounds are also called as noise. They are like the sounds of loud music or the sounds that is produced in factories and the bursting of firecrackers. Noise pollution could cause us ear damage or could break our eardrum. So, if you don't want to damage your ears or your eardrum, you should be very careful with the sounds that you are associated with every day. Do not shout at the ear of your friends, or do not try to be near loud sounds. And we should also learn how to speak softly